There's probably an alien with one single cheek.
But then where's the... Never mind.
Down in the... They still have a taint.
Still underneath? They still have the taint? It's still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they got like
Good.
the rounded ass cheek.
Parataintocytes. Nice. Captain's Pod, stardate 522922.1. Welcome aboard the Starship Sinterprise, and thank you for joining us as we take a brief shore leave from the world of CinemaSins to explore the universe of Star Trek. I'm your Captain Ian Whittington, and with me this week, she puts the Zen in Heisenberg compensators. It's Ambassador Deneé Hughes.
Good day to you. What do you think about that?
This week we're going to be looking at season 6.
No, I want to be a singing telegram ambassador today.
Sing. You're going to sing the entire episode. You're sing-a-gram. Sing-a-grassador?
I'm a grassador. Oh, that reminds me of a story.
Do it. You have 3 minutes.
Oh, that's plenty of time for this story. In fact, I think I can do it even quicker, but only if I would start right away.
Okay.
So
2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Wait, that was not a you're
this is a Romulan 3 minutes. It goes faster.
Oh, shit.
The planet spins quicker.
God. Okay. So I was
20 seconds left. Continue. No, I want the story. Give me the story. Tell me. You have all the time you need. Do it.
So last night, Iris was wanting a bedtime story, and so we read one of her favorites, I Love You Because You're You.
Oh, I love that one.
It's a really cute little book, a little rhyming book. And after she finishes, she starts talking about this creature. She's like, did you know? And she has a very active imagination. She makes up words, things like this. She says, did you know that there is such a thing as a gruffalo? And I was like, what? And she's like, it has orange eyes. And it has black tongue. And it has and she's describing this thing. And I'm like, man, she's really specific. And I'm thinking, God, my child has nightmares or something. This is awful.
Broken by the Gruffalo.
But she gets this one part. She gives like maybe 6 adjectives. And I'm trying to figure out what is her imagination and what is her repeating information. And I don't know. It's a conglomeration of everything.
Goblinration, yeah.
Yeah. And she gets to it's like, and it has purple spikes on its back.
Oh my goodness, it's terrifying.
And I'm thinking this is too far. I was like, is this a book that you've read? And she's like, yeah, we read it at school. And so I thought, this is kind of scary because she was like, when she was describing it, her eyes were big and she was like wiggling her fingers to make it kind of scary or whatever. And so I ended up finding a PDF online and I read the Gruffalo book.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was hilariously hysterical because it describes it all perfectly. The Gruffalo was an actual book. And so she is so excited because I'm reading it for the first time. And we get to the part where it's the spiny back part, which is the trigger for me that there was something more going on. I burst into laughter because she's like making these animated motions and we're both just laughing together. The Gruffalo is a really, really good book. Anyways, one of the words you just said reminded me of Gruffalo, and that is 3 minutes of your time.
That is amazing. So had you heard of the Gruffalo before yesterday? You'd never heard of it?
No.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I had no idea.
You're like, my daughter's a best-selling author. Like, this is great. She's invented this word, created this amazing creature. Yeah, no, they've made like movies and stuff.
I had no idea. I had no idea.
Amazing.
It's such a clever story, too, about this.
Oh, it's brilliant.
And she thinks it's about the Gruffalo, but I'm like, this is a story about the cleverness of the mouse. And so we had like a little chat about that and then went to bed and I thought, my God, I hope this Gruffalo isn't haunting her with its knobbly knees and its spiky talons.
She might like the movie. It's a while since I've seen it. She might like it. It's a little bit scary, but it's got like a good ending. So that's so interesting. That's amazing. That's kind of like if I'd never heard of Star Trek and my imaginary kid was just like, and then they go to space on the USS Enterprise, and I'm like taking notes. I was like, this is great. Let's make this into a TV show.
Wait, but that was very specific. You said something about a warp core. Let's just Google this and see. Where is this coming from?
Yep. And then there is a Vulcan. He has pointy ears and dedicates his life to logic. I was like, wait. This
okay, all right. This is out of your imagination realm now.
Amazing. That's so great. You have a very intelligent daughter regardless. That's amazing.
She does make things up that it was genuinely a toss-up on whether or not she was just describing things in her imagination. But it was so specific. Anyway, that's my story.
That's amazing. I love it.
Thank you for letting me derail, Captain.
Oh, that isn't making it into the show. So this week we will be looking into Season 3, Episode 5 of Star Trek Lower Decks, Reflections. Any predictions before we jump in?
Reflections. Ooh.
Reflections.
This could be a literal one. We've got mirrors as an option. It could be one where you're like, introspective about who you are as a person and what you want to be, reflecting on things.
No, I think they are literally going to run into mirrors and then jump into different portals.
Is there something about a reflector dish?
That's the deflector dish.
Okay.
We covered this last week. Remember, the deflector dish pushes the meteors out of the way.
That's not my question. Is there a reflector dish?
Yes, I am sure there is.
So maybe it's about the reflector dish.
Goddamn Geordie LaForges. I am sure he has made a reflector dish at some point. So this episode has been out. We're recording it super, super early. This episode of Lower Decks has been out, I think, maybe 8 or 7 hours. I've already had something spoiled.
What?
I was flicking through Twitter and
Which you should never do.
Which I should never do, ever. And somebody just tweets, it was really nice to see ... show up this week. And I was like, dude.
Oh, so we have a guest appearance? Okay. Do I know this person?
I'm not going to say anything.
Oh, that's so nice of you.
Yeah,
okay.
But I was just like, great. Hours. And I'm not saying.
You're
but it's
hours
fine.
away.
That's my fault.
Yeah, that's your bad, Captain.
With that, we will see you guys for a full debrief in 10 Forward after we have watched episode 5 of season 3 of Lower Decks. Do the burritos! Welcome to 10 Forward, the part of the show where we grab a drink from the replicator and share our immediate thoughts and feelings on the episode that we just watched. Most important question first, what would you like from the replicator, Ambassador?
Today I think I'll drink the blood of my brain buddy.
Oh, the blood of your ale. I would like some Romulan ale because I got all the tingles from the Romulan space. The stash, it was so cool. I loved it. Okay. Before we get into that, this week we see Boimler and Mariner on recruitment duty on a random planet because what else are we going to do with them this week? And most importantly, we see some threads unravel as Rutherford is possessed by
himself.
Damn it, just spoiled it. Possessed by a strange presence that may have secrets to his past. Overall thoughts and feelings, Ambassador.
Let's first just talk about how you're like, spoiler, if you're listening to the show and you don't want to be spoiled, this isn't the show for you.
This is a bad place.
This is not a good place. I just
hold the suspense for a couple more minutes.
Moments, seconds.
I wanted the reveal. I wanted to give the big reveal.
There we go. Yeah, not my favorite show, episode, rather.
Oh, interesting. Okay, Tell me why. Was it too serious?
I mean, it got better for me once Boimler lost his shit. Then I was like, okay, here we go. And then that was really, really sort of towards the end, like the setup for the Rutherford reveal for me. And this is probably because I haven't spent a lot of time with Rutherford, whom I'm calling Robotford.
I mean, that's perfect.
Yeah. So I haven't spent a lot of time, again, I only watched the first episode and then the last episode of the, what season was it? Second season. So I missed basically 2 entire seasons before starting this series. So what I am lacking is a relationship with these characters outside of essentially what I see week to week. So I feel like for those who have been watching this since season 1, this is a huge episode because there's more information finally being given for Robotford. However, for myself, I'm like, get to the point, because I just felt like a lot of these scenes just went on for so long. And for a show that usually clips through, I was checking my watch that I don't actually wear.
Oh, interesting. You were checking your freckle pasta hair.
My freckle pasta hair, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd be interested to watch season 1 and season 2 with you, because I don't know that it changed very much for me, because he isn't a huge part of those seasons. Like, there's some running gags where he will go on dates and be overachieving and whatnot. But the setup for him having hidden memories is literally in the finale of season 2. Like, we don't know that there's anything wrong with him until then. So
interesting.
We've only been waiting for this since then. So
really, it hasn't been that much of a build-up then.
No, not at all. So I think you're just feeling whatever this episode was making you feel. I don't think it would have been improved by watching another 2 seasons.
I feel like if I was to rewatch this, I might be able to pick up some more things that I enjoyed, and there is a lot that I did enjoy about this one, but just my general thoughts and feelings, I wasn't as in on this one. What about you? Because this has had the things I liked about this, I'm thinking you were like super amped about, which is all the references. I mean, this was just like someone threw up references. So
man, there is not a passing second or like side comment that can't be a reference, and all the ones you spotted, I think there'll be just as many that you missed. So the B plot with Mariner and Boimler didn't really do anything for me at all, and so that's in ReSINstance, but overall that was a little bit slow until Boimler exploded, which is kind of like the go-to thing, is make Boimler explode to make something entertaining. But the A plot with Rutherford I really, really enjoyed, but I'm a sucker for picking up a hanging thread and developing some backstory and an overarching thing, and it was just filled with cool stuff that I love that they get to animate and that I love that they get to see. So overall, I'm probably leaning more towards where you are in enjoying it less than the rest of them, because it was super focused on let's develop some stuff for the future. So Rutherford's mystery, is Mariner going to leave again? Boimler becoming more bolder. And not quite the same whimsy that we usually have, but man, the references keep me going. Like, the cool shit that we see on screen is so great. So yeah, let's dive into some of that stuff. So the thing that was spoiled for me was the Delta Flyer appearing, which wasn't really a huge spoiler.
That's the nice fancy shuttle that was in the race.
Yeah, that's the one that Rutherford built. So that's from Voyager, and they build that to. It's so contrived. Like, there's this species that are dumping like nuclear waste or antimatter waste somewhere, and they're both sending a probe to this planet, and then they have to race to rescue the probe. And instead of like coming up with anything, they're like, you know what we're going to do? Both ships are going to independently decide to build a faster shuttle that can survive flying into the planet. And they make the Delta Flyer, which is so much fun. It's such a cool little ship. So it was nice to see that racing around. That was a big positive. Yeah, I loved that little ship. What about you? Give me something you liked.
So one of the biggest things, I'm going to go to the very end, because at the very end of this episode, my thoughts were really interesting to me, and I can't kind of stop, like, my brain's just cycling through. So it's Mariner, and she receives this transmission from the ex-Starfleet person who left to kind of become a rogue archaeologist, I think, that essentially steals things from museums to return them to their planets, if I was understanding that correctly.
It's to sell them back, yeah, exactly, and make a profit. So she's based it on another character called Vash, and I don't know why they didn't just use her, because it's the same exact person minus the Starfleet history. So it was an interesting choice to not just use somebody we already know, but hey, create somebody new.
So she calls that person calls Mariner and essentially is like, hey, listen, if you ever don't want to be in Starfleet, give me a call. And Mariner saves her contact information rather than deleting it, and sort of glances to the back of the ship, watches the planet disappear as they go into warp. And I got the impression that Mariner would consider moving outside of Starfleet. Like, maybe that is a good move for her, just her personality.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
It does. And what I love about that ending with the potential to leave Starfleet is, you know, this show, just like all Star Trek, is in its own world. It's in its own ass. And this episode is like forefront we are in our own ass. And they are talking about, like, you know, they have all of these aliens coming up and like questioning them, which is like showing, you know, all the different ways that Starfleet can and cannot be perceived, et cetera, et cetera. There's conversations. The Boimler loses his shit, which is like probably my favorite part of this episode, and, you know, goes to the defense of it. So you're hearing maybe all the fandom fighting back and forth. This is like the forums on display in one episode in a way. And this show is taking time to say, we see all of this. We are in our own ass. We're in our own world. We know it. We're exploiting it in this new show. We're getting laughs about it. We're taking it seriously, and we're also not. And, you know, one might think this is a big ego, but they put that aside and they bring this like storyline to the forefront that there's more besides Starfleet. And what's cool about that is that, you know, Star Trek, it's doing what it does. Star Trek has created this whole universe, and there's Starfleet, and our story is firmly in Starfleet, and they're acknowledging that there's more, but yet they're going to stay in their lane because they do it well. And in a weird way, I feel very similar about our job with CinemaSins. Like, all of us as the writers, we are so much more than just a Sins video or something, but we're staying in our lane and we're doing what we like to do, and we're in that space, but there's so much more out there, and we know that, and we recognize that, and we're not always right, and we have those conversations, but we're not so dumb that we don't acknowledge that there's more out there. So just
when we can, we reference it. Yeah,
it's this really brave thing that the show did that I really appreciated as content creators. Like, we know that our characters can live outside of Starfleet. We love them. We want to keep them in our Starfleet lane so we can see them. But there are people who leave, and this is potentially a glimpse at Mariner having that release. I thought it was brave and interesting. I don't know. I really got stuck on that part. Yeah. So I wanted to say that first. That's probably my favorite thing that happened this episode.
That is my number one top longest note from this episode, is that I love that it explored that Starfleet is basically a military organization. Like, we kind of forget that and brush it under the carpet, but when they said, hey, look, you're just a veiled space navy, I was like, yeah, it's basically the Navy, because it is the armed force of authority that Earth and the Federation has. It has it has the ranks of like the military as well. It is literally a military institution, but its primary goal is to explore space. But it spends a lot of its time defending instead of actually exploring. Like, we fall into that. And it's one of the things that Gene Roddenberry really pushed against, was he wanted to focus, from all I've heard, seen, read, whatever, focus on the space exploration stuff and really butted against the battles, the wars, and all of that stuff, which is why Deep Space Nine was so controversial, because that wasn't about exploration. That is stay put and defend a war. That's pretty much what Deep Space Nine ended up being. And I love it. Like, Star Trek can do all of those different things, but it's so cool that this episode says Starfleet isn't the only option. It's where, like you say, it's where we like to be. It's where we're comfortable. It's what we like to explore. But there are all of these other organizations. There are civilians doing it. There are archaeologists. There are freelancers. There's just mining consortiums. There's the collectors.
And they all have
all of these
booths.
people. Yeah. And it's like, come join our cause. Come do it. Like, Starfleet isn't the only option. And it's so, so, so clever. It's like, it's why I can't say I didn't like this episode, because it is such a great encapsulation of the whole universe and the options that are actually out there.
This is a more cerebral episode. Because it kind of asks you to, and maybe this is why it didn't hit me as much, is because there's so many references, and there's so, like, I think a super fan of Star Trek would really love this episode, because there's so much to think about. But for someone like myself who doesn't recognize the aliens, doesn't know all the backstories that are being referenced, it's kind of like I'm skimming over the surface, and all I was watching was two people bored at a convention and one person having an argument with himself in his own brain the entire time. And it was like, wookie dokie, where are we going here? So that's why it felt a little bit long for me.
No, that's totally fair. And that is one of the reasons that Lower Decks will always fall down a little bit. It's going to be tough to get new people into Star Trek with this, because it is punctuated with references everywhere. Like the poofy flower that Tendi spends 30 seconds like it's in the vase, that's from an episode of the original series. and it sends everyone's emotions crazy, and it makes Spock fall in love with somebody.
I thought that flower was going to play a part in Robotford.
Just a reference.
Doing, yeah.
Yep, just a reference.
In the middle of this bay, suddenly it's there. So I don't.
It's crazy.
That was one of my sins, so I guess I'll just mark that off as an early one.
Why didn't the poofy flower come into it? Literally just there as a reference. That's it.
No. My sin was, why is it there at all? Like, did she just tote it in on the little platform and just set it
in the cargo bay? Yeah.
Anyway.
And why is it just constantly poofing as well? It's supposed to wait until something gets near it. Anyway, ReSINstance, but I think we've covered it now. I mean, even the white void that Rutherford and himself are in, that's a nod to an episode we've actually seen, like Tapestry, where Picard is with Q in that big white void, and Q is saying, you can either die on that table, or we can go into the past and you can fix the accident that caused you to lose your heart. And that entire mindscape is just this white void of stuff. So they don't miss a single opportunity to slip a reference in, which is going to be tricky because it's hard to claim it as your own Star Trek when it's so heavily based on all of the Star Trek that came before it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think they did a good job of creating something very interesting for the super fan to enjoy.
No, I love it. I mean, I
do have a question. What is Starbase 80? Because that was a threat. So in this episode, Hot Pants and Boy Boy don't want to go to this convention and man the Starfleet booth, and they're threatened with Starbase 80. Do you know what that is? Because immediately their demeanor changed and they kind of buttoned up and like, yes, sir, we're on our way, sir, because they don't want to be sent to this very, very specific place. And I obviously am missing that reference. I didn't know if it was kind of made up for the show or if it's something that exists in the world that I should know about.
So, Starbase 80, it's not immediately popping to mind. Like, I don't know if I am sure that it's been mentioned before, but it's not like for me, it's not like an infamous, that's the worst Starbase ever. But Mike McMahon did tweet about it, like saying, Starbase 80 is the worst. We hate Starbase 80. So I'm sure it's a reference, but I couldn't quite place where it comes from. After a quick Google, it looks like it's a Lower Decks thing. So we'll see if Starbase 80 pops up again and just continues to get shit upon.
What if that's the next TV show and they're just giving a wink and nod to this shitty Starbase? Oh,
that would be so great. I'm like this. There's been a Starfleet Academy TV show in the works for ages, and I would love to see that. Just a limited run TV show based at Starfleet Academy would be so great.
I think I kind of covered my favorite parts of this one. I don't know, what else did you like about it? I know I didn't mention a lot. It's because again, this one for me, I just kind of felt myself wanting to get through it.
No, that's fair. I really liked that we're picking up on the Robotford thing. I didn't expect it to be the dedicated episode quite so early on. I thought they may trickle it in a little bit more, but I think with the 20-minute format, they can't afford to do that too much. So I think they're just, hey, this is when we're going to deal with this, and then we'll pick it up a little bit later. But I love that they picked it up. I love that they handled it. I love that he now has another mission to try and find out who this mystery Starfleet officer is that seems to be behind his shenanigans. So, I love a conspiracy, and Starfleet seems to be full of sketchy people doing sketchy things. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's like they didn't solve it, but they gave a little bit more information. They let the Rutherford know that he has an entire history that he forgot, that there was some kind of an accident for something he was working on, maybe for someone else. And then as probably a cover-up, they gave him an implant and wiped his memory. And we see shadowed figures. They are Starfleet because you can see the Delta symbol on their chest. So
it's an older uniform.
It was a way to kind of say, this is more about you, but also disappear his past person entirely so he can't access those memories. He has to start over again. And that's a clever writing way to know that his brain doesn't have that information anymore. It's also very convenient, but it's understandable.
Super convenient. Yeah.
But you know what I feel like? I feel like I've been watching a lot of content recently where it's two characters that are talking to each other the entire time. So I'm watching the new season of Rick and Morty. So there's one where Morty is talking to himself. There's one where Beth is talking to herself, and now here Rutherford is talking to himself. So it seems to be this thing where people continue to converse with themselves a lot. And I wonder if that's just kind of a fun thing that sometimes you can do in cartoons because you have a voice actor that can just sort of like play all of the roles.
Easier.
But another thing that this episode did that I've recently seen was it Moon Knight? The Marvel?
Yeah.
With the whole reflection conversations that were happening. I was like, wait a second, this seems very familiar. And I really enjoyed Moon Knight. I thought it was a very different kind of approach to like a superhero style show, and did things very differently than I feel like Marvel usually does, while at the same time doing it exactly the same. So it just as it got closer to the end of it, I was like, oh yes, this is Marvel. But the whole like reflection thing was an interesting take on showing us that part of Rutherford's personality was stuck inside of himself, which was of course the reference to reflection.
Well, I mean, it's almost as if humans are complicated creatures with multiple internal narratives, and that's something that writers like to explore. I don't think it's a coincidence that stuff comes up a lot, especially like in Star Trek, there's a whole mirror universe where there is an evil version of every character that we know and love. And one of the original series did it once. Deep Space Nine did it, I think, 5 or 6 times, where they will visit this mirror universe, meet the evil version of themselves and the different paths that they could have taken. Like, it's so interesting to explore who we are and what's influenced that, and would we still be that person if certain events in our lives hadn't happened. So I'm not surprised that they mine it as much as they do.
It's a great storytelling. It's a wonderful way to kind of put some more stuff on the screen. So it's not that I mind it. It's just interesting that I'm seeing these kind of like, I've seen this recently, and I wonder how often it happens, or if it's just kind of a fun, clever. And maybe the writers are giving a nod to something that they love. Like we do that in our scripts all the time.
I'm sure they are.
Where we reference something that we really love because we love it. So.
And you won't be surprised, I was watching this with Aaron, and about halfway through he goes, this certainly feels very Moon Knighty, doesn't it?
It does. It did. It felt very Moon Knighty, even with like the punching of the eye.
Yes.
And in Moon Knight, he like punches himself a couple of times. He's trying to take over his own brain. I guess spoilers for Moon Knight.
Yeah, he tries to kiss his wife and punches himself in the face. That's so great.
The anaphastic alien, though, is that something that happens in Star Trek very often?
I am glad you brought that up. The anaphasic alien.
Anaphasic. Okay.
So if I'm remembering rightly, the sex candle episode, that is an anaphasic life form. So that's probably why that word stood out in your head. So they are a non-corporeal, goopy alien thing. So he's assuming he's being possessed by the sex candle as well. Like even that, they didn't come up with their own thing. It's like, let's pull this from existing canon. Let's pull it from a type of alien that we already know.
Amazing.
One of my favourite, more subtle references was that when Rutherford said that he's having the repeating nightmare, and Tendy's like, oh, is this the one where where you're in an alternate timeline with Kirk and Spock, and they have a believable cinematic chemistry?
So trolly.
It's so trolly.
That's what I mean by this show is like in on its own ass. Like
I love it.
Totally fine with making fun of itself, and I really appreciate that.
I love that so much because it's a reference to the new Star Trek movies, which is Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto's Kirk and Spock, who do have better chemistry than Shatner and Nimoy, because Nimoy and Shatner famously didn't get along very well. I love that subtle reference to like he's dreaming about an alternate timeline that they shouldn't know about, which is, oh man, that tickled me. I love it. When they're at the recruitment booth and it's like, hey, we've got new worlds, they're strange and they need exploring.
Yes.
I was like,
that's really fun. Yeah.
I love that.
There was a couple of that. The captain's yacht was another one that I found interesting.
Yes.
That evil robot Ferd like goes and finds a ship within the ship that is a yacht.
I love it.
With warp capability? Was that what he said?
Yeah.
So in my mind, there's like this pleasure yacht that, you know, the captain can kind of jump on and go like zip around the stars whenever he or they would need like a vacation or something. But maybe the word yacht is throwing me. It's
in my ReSINstance.
Okay.
Well, we can talk about it now, though.
Let's just go to ReSINstance. I'm ready.
No, I have more references.
Go.
Wait,
sudden
Romulan warbird. And it wasn't just like appear and disappear. It was like decloak, the D-Deridex warbird, and then zap, 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 and shoom, shoom. And I'm watching this on Aaron's TV. He has the best TV that's ever created by man.
It's amazing.
It's freaking awesome. I loved that.
You're right. We should talk about that. We should mention that.
Good.
There is something about watching an animated series that can animate this really fun space sequence. As sinful as that entire thing is, and I have so many sins about that scene, like that thing in general, just the whole setup in general. Still doesn't change that watching it was really fun. Like that space race.
It's beautiful.
It's a clever way. Like, we want to see some action, and other than that, the only action we would have in this is boing boing, like tossing tables.
No, you need, and because it's in Rutherford's imagination, anything can turn up. That's why it's so
It was
fun.
really cool, like and how big it was, and so predominant in your face. And when you think about like how when I was watching, Romulan ships decloak on TV, it was in the distance.
Yeah,
it wasn't like right in your face on the TV screen. The detail that we can get with CGI is so fun.
Good.
And then just the way that the space race was just like arcing through this, I don't know, was it asteroid field or something like that? I don't remember.
Everything. I mean,
it was fun. That was fun.
That entire course, but again, not original, because that entire space race course is pulled from Voyager. Boimler's uniform is the same uniform that Tom wears during the race.
He likes Voyager. It's coming from he is obviously a Voyager fan.
Passionate love for Voyager.
That's nothing wrong with that.
Nope, nothing wrong at all. But it is kind of like the show doesn't have to do a lot of work. It's like, hey, we're just going to pull this race that's already happened and put it over here and this show is more about recreating live action stuff in an animated form than it is about coming up with its own stuff sometimes.
If you think of it, Robotford obviously has rewatched some of the tapes or something.
Oh, he's rewatched all of the logs.
Yes, and he's just like, so when he's in his own mind, he's like, let's go. Like, I can finally be there.
Exactly what I would do. Boimler is like doing the Enterprise missions all over again. Like his off time is just replaying missions. I was like, this isn't off time. What are you doing?
His off time is taking the leather washer to all of the chairs on the bridge and just making them perfect so that whenever the captain's ass hits that seat, that it's still cushy and perfect and smells delicious.
I have got a couple more points. So the Collectors Guild swooped in. They were in one episode of TNG, and a collector kidnaps Data and then pretends like, this is part of my collection. He fakes Data's death and then shows him off to all of his friends, but Data pretends to be a mannequin. Just like won't react. That's one of my favourite episodes. It's a great one to rewatch. The parasites that took over the admirals and crawled into their butts. Through the butts. So they were meant to be the big
bad. Those are called butticides.
Butticides. Parabutts? Nope. They were meant to be...
Well, were there two people? I don't know. Because then it'd be a pair of butts.
Hang on.
So it'd be a pair of butts. So.
I guess all parabutts, because you have to have two cheeks. Yeah?
I mean, anyway, there's probably an alien with one single cheek.
Oh, I guarantee there is. But then where's the... Never mind.
Down in the... They still have a taint.
Still underneath? They still have the taint? It's still there?
Yeah. So they got the rounded ass cheek.
Parataintocytes. Nice. So they were meant to be the big bad for all of Star Trek The Next Generation. So like season 1, I think they lay this thread, and then in season 2 they pick it up. But then they decided they didn't really like it. So they just resolved it immediately.
Who would?
These parasites crawl into the ear. They don't actually crawl up the butt. They go in through the ear.
So that was the rumor, was that their butt.
So that's what they got wrong.
Funny.
Exactly. Okay. So they go through the ear, and you can tell because they have a little spike that comes out of the back of the neck.
They burst the eardrum? Jesus.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, totally. It's gross. And they basically take over all of Starfleet Command, but somehow Picard and Riker single-handedly managed to take them out.
Well, it's because of their masculinity.
Of course it is. This is the way that Riker mounts a chair. That's
exactly.
what does it.
The sheer masculine testosterone that just oozes out of their person.
And this is Riker pre-beard as well.
Shit.
God. Imagine that.
Fuck.
Insane.
I mean, no worm
take me now.
will enter that ear.
Riker will not be entered by a worm. Nice.
That's correct.
But the end of that episode, they send out a little distress signal, and they
the worm or the people?
The worm.
Okay.
And it's like Picard and Riker are just like, they've sent out a signal. it's to somewhere in the Delta Quadrant or like miles and like fucking other side of the galaxy, forever away. And the episode just ends with like an external shot of the Enterprise and then beep, 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 and then it ends. 30 years later, we haven't seen them again. So like they were going to pick that up again and send more aliens from the Delta Quadrant, but that ended up being the Borg that came from the Delta Quadrant instead, and just no connection to the worm aliens.
Okay. So what if the worm didn't need to have like a living tissue, but it could take over Borg? What if they are Borg worms now?
I was always hoping that they were like precursors from the Borg or something. But
what if they are Borg?
Could be. If
they're
are,
like
we've
the
never
Borg
been
babies.
told.
The Borg babies. You know, like that's how they actually like. Yeah. The nanos, because they're little nano worms.
Little nanites, yeah.
Oh my God.
But that's the first time they've been referenced since, and that's something I love Mike McMahon doing, is
that's fun.
The stuff that fans like, hey, whatever happened to these guys? And he's like, we know.
Someone's job is to rewatch Star Trek.
Me, I'll take it. I'll do it.
Listen to the references that are so obscure that they go nowhere and then make them into something.
Get them in.
That would be Starbase 80. It like maybe it was mentioned in the background between two ensigns before they went to take a shit. And they're like, you know what? That's a crappy place. Let's
go.
Do it.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, I'll take that job all day long. And my last little reference was even the one word. So this is when Bad Rutherford is dying, and he says, "I need to show you a memory," and he holds his face and says, "Remember." Even that, Deneé, is a reference.
Incredible. I love it.
It's from the Wrath of Khan, and Spock knows that he's going to fix the ship, but he's going to die, but he transfers his consciousness into McCoy and just holds his face and says, "Remember." And that's how they know that Spock's mind is inside McCoy. Couldn't even let that go without a reference, people.
I love it. So great.
Well, with that, let's head to engineering for ReSINstance is futile. I think the ambassador is about to swear at some people. Battle stations, everyone!
Warning. Warp core collapse in 10 seconds.
Let's start, shall we?
This is the part of the show. This is the part of the show. This is the part of the show where we re-engage our sin brains, remind ourselves that no TV show is without sin, even our beloved Star Trek. So thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week. I have no sins. Deneé, you go first.
First of all, I want to say I apologize to my dogs who are trying to sleep in the very room that I'm screaming.
Oh no!
They're like,
let's go.
Really, Deneé? The first sin that
Deneé,
I'm gonna
they first name you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure I have a dog name. I don't know what it is. My first sin is something that I've been thinking about for at least 2 episodes, maybe 3, because I can't remember the first time that I saw their bunk beds. But just the idea that this is where they sleep. I know that this happens. I know that this is how ships are. Like, you know, I've seen, you know, the interior of submarines before and these other places where military
I need to hear more
people.
About that. How did you get inside a submarine?
Oh, that's a whole other story.
Oh, okay.
Where people have to bunk in small spaces. So I know that they exist, but there's usually something that kind of like covers their bed area, gives them like a little bit of privacy.
Like, pull down thing.
And I've just let it go for episode after episode. But I think if I was to sin this episode, there's this moment that the episode starts with Robot Rutherford having a dream and screaming and waking up. And the person sleeping directly below him doesn't even stir. And I just, maybe I'm wrong and you would acclimate to the environment and actually be able to sleep because your body needs it. But if somebody was screaming on a ship where there's constantly things happening, where just last week the captain came through with a mask on her face and there was an emergency, you wake up and you go. So there's just got to be some other ways that there's a force. Something that would give you some privacy.
I just wish they would show it to us so that you didn't like roll out of bed as well.
Well, in Strange New Worlds, in one of the first few episodes, I believe, what's her name? The comms. Uhura. She was in kind of her own little bed, and it had a little. It was the episode where they were really sensitive to light, and so she kind of shut herself in there, and it had a little force field that popped up, and I was like, "Oh, that's clever," because it kind of gives you a little cocoon so you can sleep. Anyway, I would send that on this one. Cocoon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In that moment, though, I love the really butch, muscly guy with the towel, and then just like,
yeah,
I
great.
love the high pitched scream. So good. I just think in general you shouldn't be purging people's memory caches just on a whim.
Well, especially because there's been an issue with that already, and I think he referenced it multiple times and has said that he was having headaches and stuff, and she's just like, you know what, let's just push the button again.
Tendy's like, just immediately, let's do this with a tricorder. Instead of go to engineering, go to sickbay, it's, I can just press a button and then delete your browser history. Like, no,
it's like if
you
had a computer and you deleted the cache and it kept crashing, you wouldn't keep deleting the cache. You would look for the next problem. You would take it to a professional.
Yeah.
So
like, it's going to last a day and that's it. Yeah, that, yeah. Tendy, hands off.
Yeah. So I just want to say Samanthan Rutherford. We've really enjoyed the names of this one, and I don't know that this is necessarily a sin, but it could be kind of a clever, fun thing if we throughout the series of these, whenever we learned their first names or they're strange, like personally, I love the creativity with the names to take something and add something else that just makes it a little bit different. Samanthan, what a great name! That's
Instead
so fun.
Instead of Samuel or whatever, Samanthan, and it still makes sense. And Bradwood is the same. Instead of Bradley or whatever Brad is short for, it's Bradwood.
I love it.
Great. I love it so much. The names are super imaginative. I want to know what they're doing with the shuttle. Like, in most episodes, they're working on the Sequoia, which I know comes up in season 1, but I can't remember why. I don't know if they damaged it and part of their like kind of punishment is to fix it. But I love that it has like doodles all over it. But considering like how quickly they get shit done, they are not making any progress on this shuttle at all.
When first seen in Second Contact at Envoys, the shuttle Sequoia had been pushed into a corner of the USS Cerritos repair bay, resting low in the decks on the set of blocks. Her original warp nacelles are leaning upright against the hull. The shuttle's windows are missing along with her side hatches, leaving just empty holes in the hull. She generally appears to have been stripped for parts. Wow. Someone has literally put a whole thing together on Reddit.
Oh, I guarantee it, because it pops up so much. It has to be, my prediction is they will end up using that ship as like a last resort for something. An escape pod, or it's like, but it's not ready to go. We've been working on this for 3 years.
It literally, this person is outlining, and this was put on 2 years ago, so likely through that season one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
About all the things that changes through that first season. So in this episode, this is what it looks like. In this episode, this is what it looks like. So yeah, there's definitely something going on here.
I suspected that was the case. Yeah, I love that. I'm all for it. I just think it's taking too long. It's been 3 years.
But what a fun thing to do. I mean,
totally.
Because in a show where you have to fast-paced movement, since it's a 20-minute show, to have something happening in the background that's that slow burn, that's the sweet stuff.
No, you're right. You are absolutely right. Doesn't make sense.
Cancel that sin.
No.
Is it sinful that I'm going to call bad Robotford? Is it sinful that he knows the word Jeepers Creepers when he goes to see Tendy and get the information about the security
the shift
stuff?
change.
He says Jeepers Creepers to try to like pretend like he's good, but should he know that he can do that? That's a whole different part of his personality that he doesn't have access to.
Yeah, I mean, good Rutherford has to pull it from somewhere, so maybe they're pulling it from the same place, but
then why couldn't Goodford and Badford, they would be able to like transfer back and forth with each other, and they can't do that. Anyway.
No, you're right. It might be sinful. I think my biggest sin is
sins about them. Like, it's ridiculous.
My biggest sin for that is that they know what Jeepers Creepers is. Like, that is either a very old song or a very old movie reference. So
Jeepers Creepers, where'd you get those peepers?
But I did like he was like, okie dokie, let's go. And good Rutherford is like, I do not talk like that. I was like, no, you do. You absolutely talk like that. And even like in his imagination, when he's giving Beckett an order, she's like, okie dokie. Like, they all talk like him as well. It's so great. Come on, sin it more. Sin it. Sin Rutherford and bad Rutherford. Oh my God.
Well, the whole thing that's happening in their mind is just a minefield of fuckery. So, essentially there's an argument between Goodford and Badford, and which one's going to come out on top. And then for some reason, and I'm just going to try to get all of my sins in one like little rant here.
Okay.
For some reason, Goodford agrees to do something that only Badford knows how to do, which is race. That's a sin. Like, why would you put yourself at a disadvantage.
Yep, totally unfair.
But Goodford's like, yeah, sure,
Let's
I'll race.
do it.
He shakes hands with himself and then begins his own imaginative race where Badford then, and this is all sinful, all of it, Badford has trouble racing even though he could imagine himself having shields. They could avoid imagining the Romulan ship that's destroying them. Everything that happens, they could literally avoid.
I think he randomized the track, though.
You can reimagine what I'm saying.
Cheating.
This is an active situation where you can pretend whatever you want to pretend as you go. Like there's, if Badford wanted to take over Goodford, there's no reason to stay within whatever rules they didn't. Oh, and let's also talk about another sin happening at the same time, which is this idea that the brain is like imploding on itself because he's in a coma and they only have so much time. So then they spend time building a ship imaginatively.
Yeah, but it only took seconds.
It did not. They very clearly geeked out, both of them, building their ships. This is like someone saying, honey, we're going to be late to school. And the kid says, Mom, I'm just starting to build my ship. And then you get the glue out and you start gluing it all together. And 7 fucking years later, you go to school. This is like
they're going to college.
Insanity. And yes, you're like, it happened in seconds. No, it took time. We watched them taking the time to build a ship while their brain is dysfunctioning and they both could die.
But what if brain time moves quicker than real time? What if all of that happens in the space of 1 second?
Why pretend to build it at all if you're afraid of dying? Just fucking fight. Let's see Goodford and Badford just go to blows, but they know they want to do their thing. So it's just this weird thing. And then friendship is what saves the day. Yeah, but it's not friendship. It's actually more parts of Goodford's brain pretending to be his friends. It is the most insane bit. And I'm forgetting things. Like there's stuff in here that I just like, I wrote stuff down. I was just like, I literally was like, this is absolutely dumb. But it was fun to watch. And that was, that's where I was like, yeah, this all falls apart if you start asking questions. But it was fun to watch.
I mean, he could have just imagined a Borg cube. And just
anything.
The other shit.
Exactly. No, it could have been anything.
That would have been chaos so quickly. Like, just imagine a black hole just sucks him up. Yeah.
If this is a brain with a bad side and a good side fighting for who is going to come out as the dominant personality or the dominant like memories, what this show is saying is that because Goodford had made friends, he had the advantage over Badford, who. Yeah. I mean, but there's all kinds of things Badford could have had. And it's one of those storytelling tropes that it's fine, you know, but it's so simple. It's like a good and a bad. But guess what? There's good things about Badford. There's all kinds of things we could have found out about his character that could have been really interesting to take over and to see what Badford brings to the table with his skill set and still develops friendships. So the only reason that he wins out is because this is what it's so fucked up. Goodford's part of his brain has friends that know how to push buttons at the same time.
Yeah, that's all it is. He doesn't do a lot more. They don't do a lot more. Yeah.
Meaning Badford just can't imagine fast enough.
Yes. He could imagine some extra arms. That's really all he needed, some extra long arms.
He forgot shields? I mean, you can literally make whatever you want in your imagination and you're going to recreate something without a shield and then go into this simulation. I don't know. A simulation that exists in your own brain. It's not even outside of your brain. It's in your own brain.
You have to have some rules.
There are no rules when you're fucking dying and you're in your goddamn brain.
But there has to be some rules.
No. It's like there's no survival instinct going on here. It's just storytelling.
But they've been partitioned. They're two separate minds.
If I'm Badford, I'm doing whatever the fuck I have to do to turn my ship around, use my gun, blow the other guy out of the water, and get sucked back up into the brain and start over again. There's no reason to be like, let's do this the right way.
Sacrifice
it's just
yourself. No, I get that. He should have just like phasered him or something.
I don't mind it because again, I'm watching the story and I'm enjoying what the writers want to do. It's just once I started picking at it, it was like the whole thing just fell apart.
Oh man, that would have so many sins in it. It really would. It is hard to sin dream stuff and like brainscape stuff.
Let alone, how is it even considered a fair race when you're in your brain making it up? Like, there's no way to even gauge that it's fair to begin with. Like, it's just,
No, you're right.
Anyway,
you're absolutely right. And my big sin is that it would have been more nuanced to give them a way to re-merge instead of killing bad Rutherford.
Which
like
they
you
reference.
Said, bring some of those skills to solve the mystery together. Like, respect that part of your history instead of burying it.
Badford's dying and Goodford's like, can't we just merge? And Badford's like, no, for reasons.
Yeah, no, that won't work. How do you know, dickhead?
Goodford even described his ship and its capabilities to his Badford competitor before going into the race. Like, that's just the whole thing. It was just insane to me. Anyway,
well done. That's a good rant. I'm sorry. I somewhat disagree.
That's okay. It's okay.
Overall, I see where you're coming from. I respect your opinion.
Thank you. Thank you.
On a far more substantial and far more important note, why on the Starfleet booth do they have like a Stargazer model? Why not a top-of-the-range Sovereign class? Like, why not the most up-to-date, most recent Starfleet ship? If you're going to show off and say, hey, join Starfleet, you need to decorate your booth with the best. Like, I love the Stargazer. That's great. But give me the Enterprise E. That should be on there. Or the Enterprise F, whatever is out there right now. Like, you got to decorate that stand with appealing shit.
Yeah.
Way more important
I
than,
would
like,
say that the booth
stuff.
was a little lackluster.
Yes.
Especially right beside the archaeologists. It looked like a Renaissance fair versus like the very sterile.
And I think that's might have been a deliberate point.
But like, if you're trying to recruit, maybe show a phaser.
Yeah, right. Show some guns. That's it. Give me some models. Just get Eaglemoss to build that thing.
I did really enjoy the fact that Boimler losing his shit was what gathered people to the booth, because it's just like, man, I want to have that kind of confidence. It was really good.
We saved you from the Borg, you motherfuckers. I just love the beeps. I love this guy. He just went to the Ferengi and called them a beep. So great. I kind of question, why does Starfleet even need a booth? It's the place to be. Like, are they really low on their recruitment quota? Really?
I mean,
maybe
you would think about, like, maybe not, but at the same time, there's just nothing like a personal conversation, with
two of the Z
lower
team.
decks.
Yeah, from the lower decks on a Cali class ship. Like,
that's right.
Interesting. Any other sins? Or have you eviscerated it entirely?
I am curious about your yacht perspective.
So the captain's yacht was introduced in Star Trek Insurrection, which is the third TNG film. And it's built into the Enterprise E as the captain's personal ship, which it never made any sense to me, because the captain shouldn't be leaving the ship for away mission. So what? Is it just like a holiday yacht thing? And this thing is like advanced. Like, it's better than all of the other shuttles on board. Like, this thing is bigger. It has weapons. It can go to warp. It's a secondary ship. Like, I just don't understand why the captain needs their personal yacht. What are they doing with it? I don't know. And I don't understand why the Akali class has one either. Like, that's a top of the range sort of thing. I don't know what Freeman is doing with it that she can't do with a shuttle.
Maybe it's like a smaller yacht. Like, technically it's like a Sea-Doo version, but they still call it a yacht because
the captain's dinghy.
Yeah. Please.
All aboard the captain's dinghy. It's not quite as grand, is it?
That's
amazing.
Right. And leave your butt worms.
Leave your butt parasites behind. Nice. When they said send a medical team to intercept Rutherford, no, beam his ass to sickbay. Like, transporters, how do they work? Like, stop sending people to intercept somebody that could literally be anywhere. Also, he has a comm badge. You don't need to tell them where he is. Just like follow Rutherford's comm badge or beam him to sickbay.
Rutherford is fucking strange right now. Can anyone else see that his panel is red?
Yeah, was that not an immediate thing? Like, he doesn't cosmetically change that? Like, grrr.
Yeah, that was a little frustrating.
Yeah, a little frustrating. Anything else?
Not for me.
Okay, well, I had Shax jump through the transporter beam, and the transporter beam inconsistencies bugged the tits off me. There is meant to be a confinement beam around the transporter beam that stops shenanigans like that happening, and yet in, like, the voyage home, this woman jumps onto Kirk mid-transporter beam and gets transported. Shax jumps through the transporter beam before it's finished dematerializing. Bounce off of it. Like, there is a force field around the transporter. We know that. Arrgh. Things that annoy Ian more than anything else.
I actually happened to write in my notes today too, but it was during the brain scene. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. My very last one was interrupting an official log that she doesn't complete. Like, she's doing the official log for the mission. She gets the mission from the archaeologist. And A, that shouldn't be able to interrupt her log. And B, you didn't go back and finish the log. And that's going to really annoy me and Boimler. Amazing. Well, I'm sorry you didn't enjoy this week's episode as much as previous ones, but it's going to happen. I think we've had more hits than misses.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm really interested to see where the next threads go, especially with Rutherford's mission. And I never didn't think I'd say this, but I hope we get a bit more Boimler. Like Boimler
he's fun. Let's talk about that just super fast before we end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The end of Boimler being put in the brig for losing his shit, but smiling and getting recognition. This is there's been several moments. I mean, after he had the hunt, when he was being hunted, the prey or whatever, he got recognition for kind of being a yes man and taking some risks. And in this case, he lost his shit. But I think we're really, I said this, I think in the episode 1, I think this is watching Boimler learn how to become like level 1 Starfleet.
Yeah.
Like going into the officer realm, he's going to be learning how to. Yeah, because I think he has what it takes to know what to do, and he's got to access when to be brave and when to be bold and when to hold back, and he already knows how to hold back. So he's like learning the bold part, whereas the counterpart to it, Hot Pants, is she's all bold and she's learning when to hold back.
Yeah, so when to dial it down.
Yeah, they're both kind of on the yin yang of that, which is really fun to see.
I love that. It's really fun to watch, and I hope we actually just get a bit more Boimler, because I do feel like he's had a bit of a back seat, but the times that he is present, he's definitely getting some character development. I overall love what the show is doing. I really, really, really do. We're halfway through the season. 5 episodes left.
It's crazy.
It's gone so quick.
And we hope you guys are enjoying it too.
Well, yeah, that's fine.
Listen, the captain's feeling a little snappy after the whole brain conversation. And we can talk about it after the show's over, okay?
That's fine.
All right.
I understand. But brain stuff is hard. Anything can happen. Inception. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. We should be back to normal next week. Apologies for no live stream this week. Because I'm traveling around and about, but next week we should be back on track with our Monday live stream, 12 Central on Twitch and YouTube. So thanks for listening, everyone. I'm off to Starbase 80 to sell the Grand Nagus' staff to raise enough money to remove my anaphasic butt parasite.
And I just told a Ferengi to beep, 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 beep.
Damn it. I was hoping I listed so many references there weren't any left for you. Such a butt. And live long and Podsper.
Thanks for listening. Want to connect with the show? Our hailing frequencies are always open through captainspod@cinemasins.com. Like, comment, and subscribe on your podcast player of choice, and be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Oh, God. Oh, no.
You're right.
Yeah. I didn't have it in my earbuds.
Where did you have it?
On speakers. I was like, you're coming through everywhere.
No, this is the voice of your conscience, Deneé. It has been piped into the ship's computer.
Why does it sound...
Do your laundry.
Oh, I do need to do that. Yeah. That is heavy on my conscience. Yeah. That's an easy one. You can pretty much assume that if you say that to anybody, they're like, yeah, I probably should do that.
Message that friend from high school that you poked during math class on Thursday the 21st of May, 1986. Which means I think he would have been... Nope.
Not born yet? That's right.
Correct.
Actually, I was born in the 1800s. I am a vampire, so.
Holy heck. I mean, you didn't have to go with vampire. It could have been literally... anything. You don't have to do any blood sucking.
No, there's a lot of misconceptions about vampires. So.
Oh, okay. You're not the blood sucking type.
It's easier if I say vampire, because then it's just like, oh, okay, instead of having to explain my actual species.
You're a subspecies of half drow, middling hobbit vampire. Starts
off in space. It's a lot. It's a big thing. We'll talk about it later. We got a show to do.
There's a show. And that is a conversation in Cetacean Ops.
Oh, it's time to record Captain's Pod, bitches! I don't know why you like to hear me curse so much. I don't know why I like to curse so much. I just like cursey words, okay?